These stories might have been made up, or they could be real, but either way, they scare me. Mostly because this one has to do with animals. Maxwell, Raising a Psychopath, Part 1. We moved to Indiana in November of 2018. I have a beautiful wife, April, our 5-year-old son, Max, with another on the way, and another baby on the way. A job opportunity opened up, and we decided we didn't want our kids growing up around the hectic bustle of the city. I took the job, and 3 days later we left Chicago behind for a small town. About an hour south of Indianapolis, my wife was an introvert. We left Chicago behind for a small town about an hour south of Indianapolis. My wife was an introvert and didn't have many close friends, so the move wasn't a huge change of pace for her. She stayed at home and took care of our son while I worked at a limestone quarry. Our son had the toughest time adjusting to the move. He missed his friends from our old neighborhood and felt lonely. Our closet neighbor was a mile down the road, and there weren't other kids for him to play with. So he spent most of his time by himself in our yard or the woods behind our house. We got settled in, and it slowly started to feel like home. On the weekends, my son and I would take walks through the forest. One day, we came upon a fallen bird's nest, where there were 3 little hatchlings. Their mother had abandoned them, and they were going to starve. He was too young to be worrying about mortality, so I just suggested we race to the clearing ahead. He didn't say anything, but continued staring at the baby birds. "Is everything okay?" Not blinking or averting his gaze, he broke the silence. "Be quiet!" To my horror, he began violently stomping the birds until their chirps were replaced by silence. Their bodies flattened and bloody. In disbelief of what I had just witnessed, I took Max's hand and we walked back to our house. The whole way back, Max was smiling and seemed completely unaffected by what happened. When we got home, Max ran to his mother and asked, "Can I have a pet bird for my birthday?" The sound of the baby birds being crushed echoed in my head like popping bubble wrap. Having a pet is a lot of responsibility. "But you're going to be turning 6 this year. I suppose my big boy can handle it." We go to the pet store tomorrow. We can go to the pet store tomorrow to pick one out if you'd like, April said, smiling and hugging Max, unaware of the brutal event that had happened only moments ago. That night, I told her about Max's outburst. She was surprised, but suggested that maybe he was just putting them out of their misery. I wanted to believe he was acting out of mercy, but I knew it was fueled by nothing but anger. The next day when I got home, there was a small cage, and inside a small yellow bird hopped around. Max's face was up against the bird cage, and he was smiling as he watched his new pet. He did this for hours before taking the cage into his bedroom. Still concerned about Max, I poured a glass of whiskey and tried to forget about it and eventually fell asleep. I woke up the next morning and went to work like usual. When I came home, Max was watching TV in the living room. "How was your day, bud?" He told me about the fort he made from couch cushions, how he'd helped Mom prepare dinner, and showed me a paper airplane he made. "How's your new friend?" I asked. He told me how much he loved the bird and how he played with him all morning, but during his nap the bird started chirping, and he told me how he told the bird to be quiet, but he kept chirping. Max said the bird didn't listen, repeated himself, and concluded the bird must be deaf. I explained to him that his bird doesn't know what "be quiet" means. He then told me since the bird didn't listen, he took it from the cage and squeezed it until it was quiet. He threw it in the garbage and told his mother about the defective bird. Mom said we can go back to the pet store. Mom said we can go back to the pet store tomorrow so I can get a good bird this time. April and I argued for hours. She said I was overreacting and that kids do weird things and that there was no reason to worry. I slept on the couch that night, trying to ignore the sickening feeling in my gut. When I got home from work the next evening, there was Max, face up against the bars, staring at a light blue parakeet. I skipped dinner and had a few drinks before retiring to bed. I woke up, and before leaving, I went to check on Max. He was fast asleep with the birdcage on the nightstand by his head, but the blue bird was not inside. A chill came over me. What is up with him? I went to the kitchen, lying on top of the garbage can. Wouldn't you guess it, the blue bird. I left the house and all day tried to understand how my innocent little boy could behave like this. I left work early. When I arrived home and opened the door, I couldn't believe what I saw. A little red bird. I didn't say a word to April that night. Just took the bottle of whiskey to the bedroom and drank till I passed out. The hangover woke me up, and after vomiting, I went to Max's room, empty cage, and a dead bird in the garbage. I woke Max and asked what happened. He told me this bird was deaf and broken, so he squeezed it to death and threw it away. I don't want another bird, Dad. I think I want a hamster this time. This time. I tried to block out those words and focus on work. Glad at least we wouldn't be having any pets in the near future, hoping this was just a weird phase, like April said. I felt comforted knowing she had to share my feelings, and would never give Max another animal. Feeling more and more positive about going home tonight, I rented a movie on the way home and got a pizza. When I got home, thank goodness, the empty bird cage was on the counter. I went to find Max, who was sitting on his bed with his back to the door. My heart was hunched over, and when I got closer, my heart sank. On his lap was a small square cage with the furry brown hamster inside. Whiskey, sleep, morning, dead hamster in the trash can. Work, home, new hamster, whiskey, sleep, repeat. There were 5 hamsters. The last 2 Max impaled using colored pencils. How do I know this? He left them skewered and bloody, in the trash can, as he had the others. April and I decided Max might benefit if we got out of the house for a few days. So we went to my mother's house in Chicago for the weekend, and we told Max that there would be no more pets, but that we would do whatever he wanted. And we could go to the aquarium, or a baseball game, or a movie, even PG-13, wherever he wanted to eat or buy him any he wanted. Max said nothing. Instead, he was looking past us, his gaze fixed upon a black dog in the window of the house across the street. We made his favorite meal for dinner. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't respond or move, or take his eyes off the neighbor's dog. He stayed like that for hours before finally dozing off. I carried him up to bed and tucked him in. I met April outside to talk, but we could hardly look at each other. We stood in silence, sparked a joint. It didn't need to be said.